Mikey.
All right, this is a special Opioid Crisis Committee meeting. This is Thursday, March 31st, 2016. We're at 6 p.m. I got Councilor McKinnon.
Here.
I got Councilor DePiero.
Here.
I got Councilor McLaughlin. I got Councilor Hingham. We have members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this is to address the opioid epidemic and make suggestions.
Have them all come up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to invite all our guests up to the table, please.
Motion made and seconded to invite the guests all up to the table at once. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, you have done so, please. Come on up. Just make sure the mics are on and stuff. Miss Abrams? Just have a seat up here. When you want to speak, you just press on the mic. It turns green. You're on. You're live. Lieutenant, you have one of the mics that should be, just click it on.
Test, test.
Yep. For the record, could we have your names and titles? We'll start on this side.
Dale Palmer, the Director of Council on Aging.
You get it. Just turn it on, Dale. Yep.
I'm sorry. I did. Oh. Dale Palmer, Director of Council on Aging.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Paul Strong, Everett Police Department.
Thank you.
Deborah Abraham, Library Director.
Thank you.
And Catherine Rollins, Director of Policy.
Thank you. Thank you for all appearing tonight. Councilman Mangan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lieutenant Strong, this actually goes out to you, and I knew if you could possibly relay this to the chief and the department. We went, a couple months back, Councilor McLaughlin, myself, Councilor Hanlon, and a few others, Rollins was there too. We were over in Watertown, and we went, and they had this little seminar where the Gloucester Police Chief was there.
Okay.
And
Joe.
spoke about, you know, what they've been doing up in Gloucester to combat it. And one of the things like we were talking about is trying to, you know, fund certain positions here in the city of Everett for, you know, to combat opiate addiction and stuff forth. Having you know, people employed by the city, maybe several people, that, you know, to help with the combat this thing, the situation. And one of the things that they used a lot to help with for funding was when the drugs and stuff like that and weapons, when they seize, they use a lot of seizure money. So this is something that I would certainly think, you know, we'll do our part from the council in terms of trying to find the funding, but in terms of, you know, I don't know what in a year what the police department brings in for seizure money and stuff like that. I don't know if you can speak on that at all, if something you know the chief would have to speak on, but certainly if you don't have information, I'd certainly like if you could just get that to him, and so we can get an idea of, you know, if there's a possibility of using some of that money for, you know, to fund, you know, fund certain positions here in the city in order to combat this.
I can certainly ask him, Counselor, but I know there's very specific rules on how we can use that money. But I will ask him pertaining to that. I'm not sure if that is one of the elements or one of the rules that we can use that for, but I'm sure it's something that we can entertain, and I'll bring that back to the chief.
Okay, thank you. And then, like I said, I don't know if it's something we would have to do in our city in terms of adopting a rule or something like that, but, I mean, they do it up in Gloucester, so if it's certainly also true, if it's something that chief up there is doing something different. I don't know how he's doing it, but he did say specifically that he was using that seizure money to fund, for the program and stuff like that, so. But if you could get that to Mike.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I pointed the wrong person, I'm sorry.
Lieutenant Strong, I don't want you to pepper spray me or anything tonight. It's good
I
to
won't
see
do
you.
that, I promise.
Thank you. Lieutenant, can you talk about a little bit of what you guys are seeing out on the streets as far as activity goes? I know you talk to officers all day long on different shifts. Well, what are we seeing out there? Is it a major issue? How frequent are we seeing this type of activity? I'm not talking about the small, marijuana transfers or whatever, the bigger issues that you guys are paying attention to, the stuff that's causing major issues. Are we seeing it on a regular basis in our city or not so frequent?
Well, I haven't been in the unit in about a year, drug unit, but I still stay in contact with Sergeant Bagley, Detective Hall, Connor, Kelly, and Mason. And as you know, they spend a considerable amount of time on heroin investigations, and they do a very good job at it. Not only do they are working the investigations, but I was talking to Councilor McKinnon earlier pertaining to how we work in conjunction with every city that touches in this city, Revere, Chelsea, Boston, Somerville, Medford, all great working relationships. And I could tell you that they are working diligently and tirelessly, put a lot of man hours in to combat the people who are selling heroin in the greater Boston area. For example, if the detectives find out that someone is delivering heroin from another city, not to just use Chelsea, but say from Chelsea, our detectives are going to team up with the Chelsea guys, and they're going to go, conduct an investigation. Some of them are short, some of them are along, but they usually will make the point when they introduce themselves to the dealers at very early morning hours with an automatic door opener. And that's how we've always done business. We have zero tolerance for it. The chief of police has zero tolerance for it. And they work a lot of man hours to combat the issue.
Yeah, no, I strongly agree that the Everett Police do a great job, and you guys are always open and forefront on this issue and talking about a bust that you may have had or whatever the case is. The people of Everett are always in the know. You can always go on their Facebook page and be able to see a bust, and you guys take pride in that, and you should, because you're breaking up a serious crime and you're breaking up people that we don't want on the streets running around pushing this type of stuff. I applaud the police department through Chief Measy for that effort. I was just wondering, per year, we've seen a big lump sum in Everett. I know we're a suburban community to Boston. We're right outside of the city of Boston. Is Everett, I don't want to say getting taken over by drugs, but do we have a issue in the police department's opinion?
I will tell you this, Councilor McLaughlin, that, again, to go back to my previous statement, is that every year is different. Again, they're a very aggressive unit, and it's not only the drug unit detectives, but everybody plays a part. The patrol division, the detective division, the youth services division, everybody lends a hand in combating the issue. Now, different investigations come up, and a lot of times we do a lot of undercover operations. They're very successful at doing undercover operations. And that's one of the reasons why you don't have a massive problem here in the city. You can go to some other cities, and you can see that you have a considerable issue. I'm not saying that you don't see it sometimes here, but usually, a lot of times, someone will make contact with someone in the drug unit about a particular area, and they're on it.
Yeah, no, and
there's many tools that they have at their disposal to start an investigation, continue with the investigation, and bring it to a successful conclusion.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you, Lieutenant, excuse me, and that's why I want you to be able to actually say that, because you really can't walk down the street in the city of Everett and be able to buy something on the street. You have to call somebody who's gonna in turn call somebody else. Everybody can get it. It's readily available, but we don't have people walking down the street selling this stuff, and I don't want people at home to think that we do, because it's not the case. And the drug team does a great job. At any time they have any lead on a hit, they're always taking it serious, and they're always out there doing a good job. And I've worked with them personally on a couple of issues, and they've always proved to me that they are very serious about this issue.
Councilor McLaughlin, I can tell you this, that some of the biggest cases that they've had with the amount of seizure of drugs, seizure of money, seizure of vehicles have started from a very small piece of information or something that they've seen at a street level type, say, transaction. They follow it through, and it has more than on a dozen occasions has turned into a larger case in which they have concluded the investigation rather quickly. Not everyone is like that, but it is. It all depends on
The circumstance, absolutely. And every case is an individual case, and every case takes on its own method and road that it's going to go down. But I applaud the police department on that issue. And can I just ask you one question? I may be out of subject, Mr. Chairman. If I am, you can call me out. The gang unit. Can you talk on the gang unit at all, Lieutenant? On as far as manpower, or how much are we spending?
I'll jump in on that one. Gang unit pertaining to the opioid crisis,
Yeah, exactly.
if they're dealing or anything like that.
Right.
What they're dealing with?
Yeah,
Yes.
in Everett. Yeah, exactly.
No,
I may have
for
said my question wrong.
Yes. For, security of our offices, no names, no ranks, no nothing.
No, so we have a youth services division. It's manned by Sergeant Stahlbaum, who has 2 officers who are up the Everett High School full-time. He is also looking to probably add a couple more officers from a Shannon grant for additional manpower. Now, pertaining to gang-related matters, they work hand in hand with the Mass State Police gang unit, and we've been working with them for about 25 years. So we have a very, very good working relationship with them.
And that's fine. I don't want to, again, the chairman's right. I don't want to get anybody into any deep conversation tonight. It's just a nice or friendly conversation about how things are going out in the streets of Everett and how we can move forward.
They have their finger on the pulse, Councilor McLaughlin, and they work with all the federal partners. Also, as you know, they just had a big sweep about a month or so ago. Our officers were involved with that. And the federal government, we have a very, very good working relationship with them, as well with the State Police Gang Unit.
Yeah, no, and again, I applaud the police department for the effort that you guys are doing out on the streets. It's not
Thank
easy,
you.
but you're doing a great job. Thanks, Lieutenant.
Thanks.
Councilman DePiero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with Mr. Palmer. Hi, Dale. Thank you all for coming as well, by the way. We spoke a little bit before the meeting about some stuff that you're doing in your department, and would you care to elaborate a little bit?
So in dealing with seniors, they're a little hesitant to talk about it. They sometimes don't think that an opioid crisis affects them. We're working diligently with Cambridge Health Alliance to put some programs forth. We're easing in slowly. Just recently we had a game show of substance abuse. It started with alcohol and then prescription drugs and into the opioid crisis. Little by little, we're trying to feed it to the seniors without them being overwhelmed with it. Now, sometimes they don't realize that they're being overprescribed, or that maybe possibly if they're missing medication, somebody in their household or somebody is taking that from them in some way. We're trying to impress that upon them using Cambridge Health Alliance and what we can. And we recently just had a health fair Tuesday, and the substance abuse from Everett was there, the Coalition for Substance Abuse, and they were passing out a lot of information. And I think some of the seniors were really enlightened by it, to say, because they don't think it affects them. And then asking questions forward, we'll address them as they go with them, because it's, again, they're a little, they're not fragile, but we like to do things in smaller steps with the seniors instead of kind of going in like gangbusters. We are, the younger senior, that's they're not really participating much. So it's the older generation that's kind of, they're concerned, but they don't see that it's may or may not be a concern. So we're trying to impress that upon them. Again, little by little, with using Cambridge Health Alliance is a great asset and a tool for us at the senior center.
Great, thank you. And before I go on, I also want to stress, too, that this isn't just about, you folks telling us the great work you're doing. We also want to know if we can be helpful to you and your departments in any way possible, whether it be funding for certain programs you're looking to do within this type of, discussion that we're having tonight. And so please let us know if we can be helpful in any way. And Lieutenant Strong, I also follow the Facebook, like Councilor McLaughlin said, and it's great. You guys are very transparent. When you have a big bust, there's photos of the evidence that you guys took in. There's reports on the arraignments. There's everything. It's very transparent, and it's great to see that you guys. It's not like you try to keep things on the hush because you don't want people to know we have a drug problem. We know it's everywhere.
Correct.
And thank you for putting it out there and keeping it open. And I'm glad you mentioned the Cops Corner, well, the youth services, because they have the Cops Corner program at the high school.
That's correct.
And that's great because it's, we're dealing with the opioid crisis, but a lot of it's about prevention too. And starting the relationships with police officers and young adults early is great.
Yeah, the chief thought it would be very important to start a dialogue with the kids at the high school, just to get the conversation going in the event that, hey, they might click with one of the particular officers that go up there. Maybe establish a, open line of communication. As, hey, if someone has a problem and they can, call the station or ask to speak to that officer. And it's already been, I believe someone had already received a call from someone at the high school just to touch base with the officer. I think we all know Chief Mazie here. He likes an open dialogue. He's very transparent. And to be honest, I believe all the officers like going up there.
Great. And I believe there's some at the police station, but to your knowledge, are there any other locations in the city where there may be drop-off boxes for prescriptions and needles and such?
No, just the lobby of the police station.
Okay. Well, I'll yield the floor in case any of my colleagues have questions for others.
I have a couple from the chair I'd like to ask. Dale, are you noticing any of the, Mr. Palmer, are you noticing any of the elderly, are they taking the literature? Are they actually receptive to it? And are they actually starting to maybe talk about it a little bit?
Again, in small steps, some, again, don't think it pertains to them. We have these health talks. We have a lot of seminars. We started a game show. So they're participating in that. And hopefully through repetitive, that we can keep them informed. They're hesitant. So when we have sometimes ask a nurse, and they like to do that discreetly. My medication's missing, or what do you, and things like that. So they're kind of a little hesitant with it, to be honest with you.
The other question that I would have of you is that, do they know there's a new law out there now, and if they are being prescribed opioids or anything like that, they can actually reduce the number that they're being prescribed?
They do.
They could switch
They
the
do.
medication if they chose
They
to?
do, yes.
Okay. So that's all out there then?
It is out there. They actually bring it to us. And it's a kind of the topic of conversation recently, so.
Okay. Mr. Hickey, could you just state your name and your title so we have it for the record?
Joe Hickey, Director of Veteran Services.
Thank you. On that, are you seeing any type of increase, or are you seeing any type of substance abuse down at where you are? Or
Drug abuse and substance abuse is unfortunately one of the major factors in veterans today due to where and what they've been through. Veterans suffer not only psychological distress, but also physical distress from wounds. And when they come home, they're often prescribed opiates to relieve both mental and physical stress, leading to addiction. I happen to have been touched firsthand by my nephew, who came home from Iraq psychologically disturbed, addicted, overdosed, and died. So I've been touched by this epidemic, which it is, an epidemic, firsthand. And what you're doing here tonight and through the city and through the state and now through the country, thankfully, it's being addressed. And it's being addressed because this isn't touching the ghetto anymore. This is touching people in Linfield and Winchester, in the high rent districts of this country. This is touching everybody. This is why it's getting the press that it is, because it is, as I'm sure Lieutenant Strong knows, a extremely, extremely addictive problem that we have in this country. The state of New Hampshire, believe it or not, is one of the highest overdose states in the country. New Hampshire,
They have a big heroin problem there.
big heroin problem. We got it here in Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
It's a problem everywhere, and I applaud the council and the councilors that are taking this on firsthand, and the city for doing what they're doing. Again, veterans are unfortunately being touched by this big time, just because of their, again, their psychological and physical calamities. And we see it, I see it, we all see it. And again, that's all I can say.
Mr. Hickey, what numbers are you talking about? What do you see in your office down there usually?
Well, I mean,
About?
it varies.
Does it vary from-
It varies from time to time. It depends who comes through my door.
Mhm.
You know, the veterans that come through my door, it could be a guy out of work because of substance abuse. A veteran just coming out of the shelter that's moving into Everett on a veteran's voucher, home voucher, VASH. And unfortunately, sometimes those problems come with him. And, I mean, my doctrine has always been to the veteran, whether they have an alcohol or a drug problem, is I'm not here to support their drug or alcohol problem. I'm here to support you in your problem. And that's always been my mantra. I want to get you the help. I want you to get you what's needed to solve your problem, because your problem's not going to be solved by me giving you money and having you go out and get your drug or your alcohol.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of it. I mean, we don't have a lot of it in Everett. I can be honest with you that. The majority of my people are the widows and the seniors, thankfully. The Veterans Administration has a real good substance abuse rehabilitation program. If a veteran has a problem, there's avenues for them. And years ago, I wouldn't say that. Today, they have that avenue. So veterans if they want to be helped, they want to go into rehab, there are beds for them.
They're not having a bed shortage issue like the
Well, I
state
mean,
is?
yeah, I'm
I-
sure there is.
Yeah.
But if, you know, I haven't encountered that. If we need to get somebody in treatment, I've always been able to get somebody in treatment.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Abrams, the numbers of children that you're seeing in your libraries that are coming in, can you just briefly talk on that?
Well, we see some evidence of drug abuse, but not mostly among children, of course. Sometimes youth, but not even, it's more youthful rebellion, I think, than it is overdoses.
Yeah. We don't want to turn it into adult rebellion and then overdose.
Right.
So
Right.
it starts,
So our
starts
effort-
somewhere.
Our effort is more in educating them when they're young.
Sure.
And we do that in a number of ways. We provide books in the collection for them to answer their questions about opioids and drugs and substance abuse. We also have a young adult librarian who cooperates greatly with the other agencies in the city that are working in this area, like TISA and Ms. Lederer, also Jamie Lederer has a
Mhm.
youth group that, you know, this is a big issue with them and that they're working on that.
Are they touching on opioids and
Yes.
heroin?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. TISA
That's a good
substance
thing,
abuse,
actually.
yeah. Then the other thing is that we provide meeting room space for any groups that want to meet together to discuss things or work on this issue in any way. A new one is coming to us called GRASP, and it's a group of people who have lost loved ones to substance abuse.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's a support group. They're meeting together to share their experiences and give each other some support. They're going to be meeting.
What are
once
the
a month.
numbers like on that?
That's just started.
It's just starting out?
Brand new, so we don't know
Okay.
what the numbers would be. Mhm.
And so we can assume there's a number of children, obviously, that go to both Shoot and Pollen, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
And
Uh-huh.
what I'd like you to do, and is tonight before you leave, there's a number of books right here that
Sure.
may be
Great.
very suitable for you,
Mhm.
all of you, to have, and numbers and everything else that's there.
Right.
We're running it on ECTV, and then we're doing a number of things with that, but I think, you know, we're gonna start seeing it in
Distribution of
our.
information is
Yeah, we'll start seeing it in
Glad
our
to do that.
schools and stuff like that soon, so. I know that the mayor's on board pretty much with this. Catherine Rollins, she's here from that area there, and she could speak on it, but I know they've been meeting monthly on this. Catherine, would you like to touch on what they're gonna be doing in prom season?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The mayor's group met most recently last Monday, and they are working on a lot of awareness and prevention activity. For prom season, the group is planning on getting a number of speakers into the high school to address as many students as possible. Folks, you know, from various walks of life, those who are in recovery or those who are family members of folks who have struggled with addiction, just to offer some diverse perspectives and hopefully connect with some students in some ways. There's also discussion of planning a festival, possibly in Glendale Park, centered toward youth and family. There would have to be some sort of either musical act or movie shown or something to draw people, but then there would also be informational booths, vendors giving away things as a way to get folks to take information, particularly our teenagers and our 20-somethings. Additionally, we're talking about doing the exhibit in Plain Sight. In Plain Sight is an exhibit where you recreate a teenager.
That's a Somerville exhibit, I believe?
It's all over. It's in
Oh, it's coming.
It's in
Okay.
Wakefield right now. You, as a community, can put it together yourself. There's a list of items available, and basically you recreate a teenager's bedroom, and there are numerous signs of drug use that
Yeah.
are hidden within the bedroom. So it's an educational tool for parents and for families to be aware of certain things that might seem a little bit odd, but you probably as a parent wouldn't really think much of it unless you knew to look for those signs. So we actually, our health department and our communications department went to Wakefield yesterday and did some filming of their exhibit. So even before we get that exhibit here in Everett, we'll be able to start showing it on ECTV. So there's, you know, a lot of awareness and education activities going on right now. We're also looking into grants, as we had discussed previously. There was a new one that was brought to my attention 2 days ago, and it is through the Federal Department of Justice. It's a Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, and that's looking to fund innovative partnerships between clinical providers and public safety departments. So that is something that if we determine it's the right fit and we can do it, that could potentially fund something like an in-house clinician or social worker who could reach out.
At the police station?
Possibly at the police station, possibly at the fire station.
Sure.
Would have to, you know, internally work with the chiefs and the health department and the mayor and figure out where it made sense. That is something that the city or the town of Arlington does right now. They have a clinician based out of their police department. And I do think that might be one of the most effective new positions that we could add. So that's something we're thinking about.
Okay. So was there any other grants, or that's it right now?
That is the only new grant I know of that has a relation to substance misuse.
Okay. Thank you very much.
you.
Councilman Megan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commend each and every one of you on the job that you're doing. Commissioner Hickey, you looking for any additional resources? I know you said it's not a big issue in Everett, but Any other thing that we can help you with from in terms of the council, in terms of, I mean, I know Ms. Rollins just mentioned a clinician or something like that, and I think that's great, because that's what I was looking for, but anything else that you see that we could help you?
That's a good point, Counselor. And if we can get some type of, feedback from them, what they need,
Right.
then we could actually put it on and
Well,
see
just
if we
to-
can get
to-
funding.
To step back a step, I don't think I said there's not a big issue in Everett. There is a big issue. There's a big issue ever. As far as my office goes,
Oh, okay, I apologize.
from time to time that we do have an issue, we have resources, and we utilize those resources through the Veterans Administration, through the federal government. State government, up until now, there really hasn't been any. There are a couple of hospitals around, some clinics that will take people. My resources that I utilize are geared more towards the federal, with the Veterans Administration. As far as somebody doing anything for us, I don't know, other than doing what you're doing, making this an issue and making it a public issue,
What
and you're
about,
doing the
like,
right thing.
So for instance, let's say a veteran comes in, but it's not actually the veteran, maybe it's the veteran's kid, or the veteran's, might be wife or something like that, or, spouse, whatever. Are they also covered? So for instance, like that, so I don't know if you see that a lot, like, so if, like, say a veteran comes in and he's got a 25 or 30-year-old kid or whatever, maybe that has issues and stuff, that lives in the city that, may need help, but you can't get it through through the VA and stuff like that.
No, unless they're obviously a dependent, so 18 years or younger or in college, they're not eligible for any VA benefits. The spouses are. So if the wife of a veteran had a substance abuse issue or any medical issue, she's covered by the state, by us. As far as the children, like a 30, 35-year-old child, no, they wouldn't be covered.
All right.
I'd have to, again, go to the resources of the social services, maybe where Dale's office comes into Human Services and direct them to that area. But as far as the VA, no, they won't cover them.
Okay, thank you. And then, Lieutenant Strong, I know you weren't at the last meeting, and I saw this documentary a couple weeks ago, which I thought was really great, and I really advise everybody to watch it. It was on Frontline, and it was up in Seattle, and it was a combating their opiate addiction. It was like a 2-hour special, and they went through all the different aspects of it. But one of the things they do up there, not for the dealers, because the dealers is a separate thing, but the people that, the people that do have, that have the issues, and they're just, the casual people that, using the heroin and so forth, they have a program where they go around with a few different police officers and so forth, and they go around the city. Now, certainly Seattle's a lot bigger than Everett, but they go around and they, they catch people in the act, or they go into known places where people are doing these drugs and stuff like that. And they're not trying to wrest away the problem. They're trying to treat the people. So whether it's taking their stuff, giving them things, resources, like whether there's these pamphlets and things like that to get assistance and stuff like that. Do you see, or do you believe something like that would be helpful here in the city of Everett? Let's just say you came to us, council, and said, we'd like to put a few more officers on, dedicated totally to doing, because I'm a big believer in that too, for what I saw, is that I don't think we can arrest away the problem all the time and so forth, because a lot of these people are gonna be back out. It's really about, if you're gonna, the state's gonna spend the resource, the city's gonna spend resources, I'd rather put it into recovery instead of just arresting them, incarceration and so forth. So I don't know, I just wanna get your feelings on that and what you believe.
So my opinion might be a little bit different than a lot of people's, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, only because I've been doing it for a long time, and I know there's a lot of different programs, and people are trying to come up with the best feel-safe system there is on the planet to help these people. But at the end of the day, it's up to that individual person
Right.
to seek, to take care of business and go in there and get clean and stay clean. The problem is not getting into the program. The problem is getting into the program, leaving the program, and then staying clean. That's the problem. So I was talking to Councilor McKinnon, and again, different people have different opinions pertaining to treatment programs, helping them in, numerous different ways. There are numerous times when, unfortunately, or an arrest is the best thing you can do. It might not be in every case, but I will tell you this, that there have been numerous times when people have come out from being incarcerated, come up to you and say that you saved their lives. I'm not saying that we can't have all these different programs. We can. But there are some times when people when sometimes they're so out of control, sometimes the only thing to do is to make the arrest, to get them into the system. For example, Malden District Court has a phenomenal drug court. Instead of people getting sentenced and being incarcerated, they have an opportunity to go into drug court with Judge Johnson. Very successful program. And you screw up once there, you're out.
They did have that, and thank you for saying that, because they did in the program I was watching, they did have that. That was one of the aspects of it and so forth. And, it was kind of controversial in a way, but like I said, it was just coming up on a different idea to try to tackle it and stuff like that. And I think it was the same thing, if you messed up, then you were out of the program and so forth. But I did see that up in Seattle too. I'm just trying to throw it all.
You're gonna know, so that when you're out in the street and you have interactions with someone who has a problem or someone who has just got done, shooting up or what have you, you're gonna know how desperate they are. Yes, get them into the rehab, but there are some times when they're gonna say to you, arrest me. And I can assure you, there's a lot of parents out there who know that when their son or daughter is arrested, you know what they know? They know that they're safe and alive for that night.
No, I understand.
There's nothing easy about this. There's nothing. Every situation is different.
Exactly.
Like Mr. Hickey here, I too I lost a nephew, very young, 23. And if I told you how many man hours did I put in to help my brother, there was a lot. So you can do everything you can, but at the end of the day,
It's up to him or her.
it's up to him or her. They could fall on their face 100 times, overdose 100 times, come back 100 times. You can get them into a rehab 100 times. You can drag them out of houses that they're in and drag them into court on a warrant of apprehension. It's not going to do any good unless they want to help themselves. You can help them push it. You can help push them in there, and hopefully they do the right thing. And you just got to stay on it. That's what your life is. If you have a son or daughter that's addicted to heroin, it's going to be a lifelong job.
All right,
And
thank
that's
you
just
very
how it
much.
is.
I appreciate it.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Couple of things. Commissioner Hickey's 100% right. I had an opportunity last year in November to tour the Soldiers Home in Chelsea with Governor Baker, Secretary Urena from the Veterans Commission. We spoke with so many veterans that day. We had to have spoken to 100 veterans in the course of the day. We were up there, Senator DiDomenico, Representative Ryan, and we spoke to so many veterans that said that they or their friends come back from war and they're suffering and they have a drug issue, and it's a major issue. And the governor heard it firsthand, and the governor and secretary were fully aware of how severe at the Soldiers Home that day it was, because when we left there, we had a discussion about it on the way back to our vehicles about how severe it is. So I could not agree more with you, Commissioner Hickey, that veterans are affected by this equally as much as young people, and across the board. It does not just affect one age bracket or one specific group of people. And I took away from that. I was amazed by how many veterans were actually being affected by the opiate crisis and drug addiction overall. That one day that I was there at the Soldiers Home. So I too want to offer any support that we can to the Veterans Department and to our veterans. What they do for us and for our country, we owe them everything we can when they come home to make sure that they have a productive and safe environment and are treated well. So you absolutely have my 100% support on that. Catherine, a couple of questions for you. The Mayor's Task Force. how many members are on the mayor's task force? I know some of my colleagues, Councilor DePiero, I know, and maybe Chairman McKinnon, I believe, have attended the mayor's task force. I unfortunately have not been able to. Can you just talk briefly about what the mayor's task force is doing, what they're driving towards? Because I know you're very concerned on this issue as well. We talk about it quite frequently. When I see you at almost every event, we're always discussing these things, and you're very aware of the issue and concerned about it as well. Could you just briefly talk about the task force?
Yes, Councilor, thank you. The task force started meeting in September, and it was something that the mayor wanted to begin out of a concern about what was happening in the city. The number of overdoses were going up, not down. He was aware that at the time we were one of the highest overdose rates in the state. I believe now we've become the first place for overdoses, which is a very sad statistic. So he convened a group of people and basically said we need to do something. There were programs like DARE in the past, various programs, and we need to come up with something, and we're going to keep meeting until we make headway. And he sees that as a permanent, ongoing process, because we're never going to have this epidemic completely eradicated despite everyone's best efforts. So he sees this as something that needs to be a front burner issue for the long run. So, there isn't an official list of appointees. We refer to it as a working group because we think that's what it is. The attendance varies a little bit from meeting to meeting. I want to say at most I've had probably about 15 people at any given meeting. There are city employees who attend. You've got the chief of police, you've got the chief of fire, sometimes they're deputies who can attend when they're able. You have our health director, you have our health and human services director, you have our constituent services person attending, you have our communications folks, you have members of the community, you have overcoming addiction, you have other folks who have been touched by this, as well as a few other city employees who have a personal interest. You have several folks from the Cambridge Health Alliance. You have Senator DiDomenico and Representative McGonigal when their schedules allow. This group is certainly welcome, and several folks have attended as well. So it's basically a monthly opportunity for us to share. We have sort of switched to a format where we ask each person at the table what they've been doing around this issue, because we do think it's something that no one department or one person has the responsibility for. We all need to take a piece of it, and that's the only way we're going to make headway. So, it's just to sort of align work to get people involved in new projects, to solicit participation in new projects, and just compare notes on what the situation is across the city.
And that's great, because you're 100% right. It is not one individual that's tasked at figuring out this situation, right? And I know Mayor DiMaria himself is very concerned about this issue and is very alert of this issue. He and I also have, as all of our colleagues have, spoken with the mayor on one-on-one basis about this issue, and he understands. He's got young children. He understands his children's friends, and it can affect everybody. And the mayor is more than willing and ready to help anybody in the city of Everett that may need or want his help. And I want to make sure that people at home know that City Hall is taking this issue serious. I have just two quick questions, Catherine. Do we track or Lieutenant Strong, you might be able to answer this. Do we track how many overdose or drug-related calls we're getting at the 911? Is it broken down by call in a log of some sort? Is there any? I'm just looking to see if we can fluctuate January's number versus
Yes.
February or February and March.
Yes, we do track those. I just want to get back to you, Catherine. I know it's not you putting the numbers together, but I can assure you that we are not number one in the state for overdoses. I can assure you of that.
Yeah, and again,
I don't know where they're coming up with that number,
tonight-
but I can assure you that Everett is not number one for overdoses in the state. I can assure you of that.
Well, Lieutenant Strong, a couple of things. Tonight's kind of a formal discussion, but kind of more a friendly discussion,
Yep.
right? WCVB Channel 5 came out with this study recently that said that Everett was number one. But I think one of the issues that people misunderstand when we talk about this issue is the Wooden Memorial Hospital is a community hospital for surrounding communities. So you have a drug overdose in Chelsea, they're coming to the Woodern Hospital. You have a drug overdose in Malden, they're coming to the Woodern Hospital. It's a regional hospital, as though it's a community hospital. So they're taking the numbers from the Woodern Memorial Hospital and they're comparing them to other hospitals. So our numbers are raised, absolutely. And they did come on and said, we were number one.
Right.
But Everett isn't number one. As a community, it's not number one. It's because it's a regional number that they're taking and they're bunching together and kind of making surrounding communities our problem.
Right, but they should have done their homework, and they should have narrowed down per city.
Oh, and I
Because
agree
every
wholeheartedly.
city has their own database for numbers to
But that's
track.
where the number came from. But they did come out and say Everett was number one
Right.
on drug overdoses. But it's something that people misunderstand or misconstrued, is that it's not Everett that is at the number one at overdoses. It's the surrounding communities. Problem becomes Everett's problem, and it becomes part of Everett's data, and it becomes part of Everett's numbers. So we get, I don't want to say blamed for it, but we get lump sum together with all of these surrounding communities because of the Woodern Memorial Hospital. So that's where the number came from, Lieutenant, and I'm sure you understand that more though than
Yeah.
anybody here.
Sure.
But that's where they did come on and say we were number one. Catherine.
Somebody should have blasted off a letter to them, though, to correct them on that.
Lieutenant.
Are you all set, Counselor?
One last question, Chairman. Catherine, how we, as Councilor Mangan said, and you attended Watertown's meeting with Chief Campanella from Gloucester. Thank you, Councilor. And he said that Gloucester became an open door policy at their police station. And I know New Bedford has done that. I asked you last month, and I'm going to ask you again this month. How can we start to move Everett's police station into the same method that just a few of the communities in the state have implemented, which is that you can come to the police station for help and you're not going to necessarily be prosecuted or arrested. You can come and ask for the help that you need or that you're driving for. How do we start as a community to move forward in that? And Lieutenant Strong is ready to say something, so I'm going to let either one of you answer that.
I'll start. I really, respectfully, I do think Chief Mazie would be the best person to discuss that. I have had some conversations with him about the Gloucester model in the past. He has some concerns. They're not only his concerns. I think the Police Chiefs Association and the District Attorneys Association have some concerns about the model, but I think he would be the best person to speak to what those are. I will say, in terms of heading more toward that model, we could do something like the Arlington clinician model, whereby it's not just law enforcement, but there's a social work component that you really haven't seen in the past with first responders and public safety, but it's something that could help divert people who are just starting to develop problems or who we're becoming aware of for the first time in the system. So I'll defer to the chief, and I'd certainly let the lieutenant speak to that as well.
I can give you a little tidbit, Councilor McLaughlin, just pertaining to some of the stuff that we do. It's out there. People know what they can do to get help with us. I can assure you that the drug unit, they know who the people are who have a problem. Those people know that all they have to do is pick up the phone and call them if they want to go into a rehab. Detective Hall has done it 100 times. I've done it 100 times. Detective Connor, Detective Kelly, we've done it. It's not advertised. It's a very dirty business, and it's a very private. People don't want the word to get out there. Their parents don't want people to know that their kids have a problem. They know what they can do to do it. I'm not saying that program in Gloucester, isn't a good program. Every program helps. It's just another tool in the toolbox for the problem. And we even started doing, when I was in there, we started for a brief time doing a recontact program where if the officers responded to an overdose call, again, at the end of the day, you offer what you can, and if you want to call us, you call us.
Sure. And I could not agree more with you. Again, on the drug force, task force in the city of Everett. I personally know every member of the drug team, and I know the dedication that they have to the city of Everett and the professionalism that they bring to their job every day. And I could not agree more. I just wanted to see if we could open it up to a bigger broad of people across the city that may not be part of that circle or pool of victims or of people that our officer are aware of, because there are people still out there that aren't part of that square or that pool, that may be looking for these resources or that would like to have these resources to them. Although our drug force, again, is top-notch in my book and does above and beyond every day for the residents of Everett. I just wondered if there was a way to be able to open that up to a more broad and perspective to the residents across the city. We do have 50,000 residents or so in the city of Everett, right? You guys are great, but you guys aren't musicians. You don't know all 50,000 of the people who may be out there.
Keep this to no numbers.
Sure.
All right.
No, good point, Counselor, but you also have to realize that, like I was explaining to Counselor McKinnon, was that they spend a lot of time on enforcement, but they also do spend a lot of time on rehabilitation. There are, plenty of moms and dads out there who know all they have to do is call the drug hotline. They're going to get a call back. And I'm not saying that's not a bad idea. You can discuss that with the chief. I'm sure we can come up with something. And just so before I forget, we talked about the education. One thing I would start sooner than later would be to bring back the drug education in schools, all schools, every single school. Start them at 3rd or 4th grade. Because I'm going to tell you what happened. About 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, they got rid of the DARE, they got rid of drug education, and they also stopped funding money for drug task forces for the local police departments. So we used to have a task force. It was us, Malden, and the state police gang unit. Very good task force. Did a lot of good cases. And every other department around here had task forces. But they took the money away. And this is what happened. You take everything away at once, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. The chief
So
is my dear
my
officer.
opinion would be to get with the school department. I would start that forthwith. That's my opinion. And the other thing I would do is I would call your partners in the state government and start getting some of these programs funded again.
And I couldn't agree more. As I said, the chief was actually a dear officer when I was in elementary school, and he was actually my dear officer. I don't think I can call the senator more than I already do, but we talk on a regular basis daily about these issues, and Senator DiDomenico and Representative McGonigal are very concerned about these as well, and are more than willing, as Catherine said, to attend meetings and to offer whatever support they can.
I'm serious when I tell you to put the pressure on them to start funding some of these programs again.
Sure, and I appreciate that.
And I don't know. I know there was talk that the DARE program didn't work. I don't agree with that. Again, it was a tool.
I don't agree with it either.
You can expand on it. You can add to it. There's a whole host of things that you can do. Right. But I would have the drug education back in every single school in the city.
Sure.
Councilor, you all set? All right. Councilman DePiero, before we start, could you just state your name and title for the record? Yeah, once it's on screen, you're on.
Steve Sapino, Director of Health and Wellness and Human Services.
Thank you, sir. Councilman DePiero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a little bit since I spoke, so I'll backtrack a little bit as to what you said a few minutes ago about, it really comes down to being up to the individual. And I can attest to that. It's no secret that my father is a recovering addict, and that's something I'm proud of. I tell people, he tells people, and it took him a long time. It was a several-year battle, in and out of detoxes and clean for a bit, fall off, and it wasn't until he was sectioned and spent some time in a facility that really helped him and has led him on the path that he is now. And I was going to discuss, the department's failings on some of the programs other cities have done, and you guys touched upon that a little bit. And I just want to assure everybody, I'm sure if anyone went to the police station and wanted help and sought it out, I can most likely assure, and you said that they're not going to be turned away. Although we don't have a specific program in place, no one's going to get turned away. And let's see. And as far as, us wanting to implement some kind of program, it needs to be a group project and a discussion, because it's unfair to the department to just say, we want you to do this and want you to do that, without giving you the resources and possibly more staffing
Correct.
and funding and such. So thank you for touching on all that.
And one other, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Councilman Magan?
Yeah, just briefly, anybody here, and also to anybody else in the city, like I said, as a city council, certainly, we're responsible for funding, programs that need funding, and to any of you, like I said, I have my word that I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I know myself, you're looking for funding, whether it's additional offices, Lieutenant, maybe that's the DARE thing, maybe we could even help out a little bit in the city and so forth, but I mean, please do not hesitate, because like I said, this is, as my counsel just said, this is, something everybody's gotta work together, and we all gotta be on the same page. So whether they're at the police station, they're at the veterans, they're down the, at the seniors down the armory, wherever they may be, I think we all need to have, kind of be together and be on the same page of where we're going. So, someone comes down to the veterans, and maybe Joe can't handle the situation down there, and he sends them, I know if you go down to the police station and you speak to so-and-so, they'll help you, whatever. If they come to Dale, so forth, whatever, if they see me in the street and they see, Council Mang and I, my kid, or I got an issue, whatever, where can I go? Well, here's where you can go, and I just think we need to be on the same page. But certainly, things aren't free and so forth, and to get the right people, and things cost, and that's, part of our responsibility, just funding important programs here. So anything at all I can be helpful with, I speak for myself only, I would certainly support any type of, funding for, additional resources that I believe will, help combat this problem. Thank you.
Mike, I
Councilman
think
DePiero?
you've already, you've started, and I think with the expertise that you have here, and I'm not, my two friends here, my three friends here, you already have your start of already a small task force here. Someone can call up Joe, hey, I'm having a problem. Joe can make a phone call. Team effort. Team effort. No one can do it on their own. I'm just going by experience.
Councilman DePiero?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say this has been a great conversation tonight. Thank you again for all appearing here. I'm very happy with a lot of the information we got. It's a good dialogue, and I'm satisfied unless any of my other counselors
Councilman McLaughlin
have
has
some
a
more stuff.
question.
Okay.
I'd like to just ask Steve Sapino, our good friend. I'm glad to hear you're in charge of health and wellness. Maybe I can be your first patient, Steve. Steve, what are you seeing on your end? Because we had asked all the other individuals what they're seeing in their respective departments. You have a very important role, as you always have in our city, but really an important role in this element. What are you seeing as far as the people you're dealing with on a daily basis now as the director of health and wellness for our city?
I'll be honest with you, Mike, it's the same as from constituent services, where, you get people that are facing homelessness, you know what I mean? And, a lot of it's related to having, an issue with drugs, okay? Lieutenant Strong can tell you, I'll call him a million times a day when he's in charge of the unit. We have, you have reports of things going on in parks and things going on at, I've had people call me and say, geez, I see exchanges right in front of me, So, I just think, like the lieutenant and everybody else has said, if we just work together on this, it's the only way we're gonna, make this, and it stays, and we stay on one path. You know what I mean? It's not, Councilman Megan's way of doing it this way, Councilman DePiero doing this, Councilman McLaughlin, then we're a mess. You know what I mean? But if we all we pick a line and we just say this is how we're gonna attack it, and I can't agree more with bringing it to the schools either. I mean, we gotta get these kids young. You know what I mean? Because it's
Third grade young.
No, you're 100% right. Well,
Third grade,
you've
yeah.
been doing a ton of research on it,
Yep.
and the thing of it is, you're getting, the culture. It's the culture. It's movies. It's, it's everything, you know, and that's what these kids, so, you know, you gotta start with that stuff early, you know?
And I agree with you, Stephen. You deal with, on a regular basis, probably the most constituents out of this room of people, because they're calling you every day, as well as counselors, including myself, have called you many times for help and for situations that we see out on the streets. And you deal with constituents probably by the minute in your job and the role you play in our city. And that's why I just wanted to ask you how frequent you're seeing it, and we do talk about this, so you don't really have to answer per se, because we talk on a very regular basis about these types of issues yourself. But I just wanted to also bring you into the loop, because I think you play an important role in this task force as well, or in this element.
You know, it's like anything. I mean, you wouldn't be human if you weren't heartbroken when you hear parents tell you stories about their kids. It's heartbreaking. But at the same token, like I said, you're seeing a lot of homelessness, you know, with adults and stuff, because let's be honest, it's, do I pay my rent or do I get high? And people are gonna get high, and that's, you know what I mean? And this is what we gotta try to help people, you know? Thanks.
All set, Counsel? Okay, I have a few questions, and then I'll be brief. But, I mean, why we're asking everyone to come in tonight was through a collaborative effort that we're trying to do. We want all the counselors here want to work with you, and we want your support and your information to us so that we could actually do our jobs to get funding for it, or whatever ideas would pop up. This is basically our second meeting, and the first meeting went great. This meeting went wonderful, and that's what we're looking to do here. That's why we asked you all to come here. I know Ms. Abrams was probably saying, well, what does the library have to do with it? Well, the library, that's where those kids are going to be, and guess what? That's where that information should be, you know. Mr. Palmer, seniors, that's another big group. Veterans, there's another big group. Ms. Rollins, she's doing, you know, grant research every day to try to find out what we can do here. There's a lot of information. Constituent service, that's what his job was. Mr.
Busiest guy in the city right there.
Without question.
Busiest guy.
Mr. Sapino, you know, one of the quietest, but the busiest. And you guys, you do a great job. So we welcome all the input. We want all the input. We need all the information. That's why you're here. I mean, if we ask you to come again, don't feel, you know, funny to come. This is what it's like. You know, we bring you up, we want to talk, and everybody should feel comfortable doing that. But Sergeant Strong?
Yep.
We need the data from you or the chief that you have on the numbers, and can you get that information for us?
Numbers of
Drug overdose calls, drug calls, whatever information you have
Yep.
related to this, you know, the drug issue here.
Sure.
Also, did you know that there's a Vivitrol program that Peter Katusian, the sheriff, is running? He runs it right out of his Middlesex County.
What's it called?
It's Vivitrol. It's one shot. They're clean for like 7 to 14 days.
Yes, I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah, and that right now, I talked to medical professionals today, and they were saying that that's probably the way to go. If we can ever get, you know, enough people that are like 7 to 14 days clean, this right here is a blocker. What it does is it blocks it for a month, and then they come back, get another shot, it blocks it for another month. He's running a great program. He's also running a veterans program. Me and the Veterans Commissioner were sitting with him, and that's one of a kind, I believe, in the whole state and I think maybe the nation right now. So you might want to touch on that, Joe. Joe, what rate does a person have to have for his wife to be considered for help? It doesn't matter? Okay, so any rate? Under the state. What about federal? Okay, and what I mean by rate for the viewing public is basically you have a rating of your service-connected disabilities. Joe, just put the...
The veteran spouses, in the state, as I've said here many times, the spouses of veterans in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, being the only state in the nation that gives services and benefits to the spouses of veterans, whether they're disabled or not. So as long as they fit the criteria as far as financial situations, circumstances, we put our hands out to help them. I mean, we don't let any veteran, and of course the health and welfare of a veteran is in his home as well. So it's
Sure.
his wife, if his wife is suffering, the veteran's suffering. So we put our hands out to the family.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say that for the viewing audience. Mr. Palmer, do you believe that we could actually maybe put a drop box for the seniors down at the Armory? If we could get one?
Certainly.
Would that be an idea? I mean, would you be
It's certainly an
feasible?
idea. If we can look into it. If you want to do it, we can do it. We'll have maybe put some information out there for them to understand it. Maybe a talk. Maybe we'll set it up with the Board of Health, the Health Department rather, to do a talk on it. And yeah, we can certainly do that.
Awesome. That would be, I think, a feasible place to do one, as well as the
Yeah.
police station and maybe another. I think there's one in.
The Health Department offered it to the seniors at the health fair on Tuesday.
Okay.
If they want to drop stuff up here.
Well, we
So,
might want to bring it,
yeah,
to them
absolutely,
as well.
absolutely.
Could-
You know,
I'm sorry, Dale.
no, this is good. No, if we maybe if
Then
we
could-
had somebody
we
on
can
site.
hit both the veterans and the seniors.
Well, yeah, I think some of our clientele, some of the same clientele, a
Absolutely.
lot of it. So, we see a lot of grandparents, maybe some more support services for grandparents who are growing their grandchildren because their sons and daughters are suffering with addiction.
Absolutely. Before I give what we've been doing as a committee, would any one of you like to expand on anything that we talked about tonight, or? Veterans Commissioner Joe Hickey.
Most people, I'm a product of the 60s. Some of us are. And the hippy-dippy days of the 60s, people smoked marijuana, maybe did a little of this, a little of that, and pills. Today, the pharmaceutical industry has come up with Oxycontin, who today's generation is used to taking a pill for a headache, for a butt ache. So it's nothing for a kid to take Oxycontin to get high. This is our problem. Kids today don't go out and go get a bag of heroin and boot it.
Yeah. They're starting
They're
off
doing
small.
heroin because they're cranked up and cooked up and they can't steal and they can't rob anymore because they can't pay for the $80 for the oxys. This is the situation. This is what's causing the crime. This is why we're getting robbed in our homes, in the businesses, and kids are out there getting caught and busted at Target for robbing stores because they can't afford the oxys anymore. So instead of spending the $80 for the one pill, they're paying $10 for a bag of brown. And they're booting it. These kids are getting knock on. 4 hours later, they're back at Target robbing them to get another bag. You want to cut the situation? Go to Pfizer. Go to these major pharmaceutical companies and tell them to cut the crap. That's how you'll put a dent in this situation right away. But you know what? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Billions. They're not going to cut out nothing.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Joe, for your 2 cents. I like that. Veterans Commissioner Joe Hickey. Anyone else? Anything else? Before we adjourn.
Oh, one more thing, I'm sorry.
Okay. And I have one thing for you.
It's okay. Debbie, you had brought up GRASP. So I'm not sure if anybody is aware of this or not, but, and I apologize if the name escapes me for now, but the only place for parents who have lost a loved one for counseling, and there's only one place in the greater Boston area, and the closest place is in Salem. So I get calls from parents saying, are there any, counseling places or any places where you can go and talk and discuss it, just to talk about it. And I think this is going to be, this is a great idea right here.
I think it's a homegrown,
Speaking to the mic,
I
please.
think it's a homegrown effort. It's just some residents of Everett who've had this experience and are reaching out to others, and they've asked to use the library, and we're very happy to have them be with us.
Well, when is that program going to start? That's key. When's the program going to start and where? If you could
I think
just,
it's April 7th. It's the first Wednesday of April.
April 7th?
I think it's the 7th.
At what time?
I think it's 7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock? And that would
I
be
believe
at
so.
Parlin?
Parlin Library.
Parlin Library, upstairs or down?
In the meeting room? So
Yes.
that would be downstairs.
Okay, down.
Check. Yes, oh no, April 7th is a Thursday, so I think it must have been April 6th, I'm pretty sure.
So
it's
it would be April 6th?
Wednesday.
So it would be April 6th,
Yeah.
and this is a grassroots kind of, and what's it called?
GRASP.
GRASP.
Not
And
quite
and
sure
this
what
is
it
for,
stands
this
for.
is for individuals that have lost a loved one,
Mhm.
and they can actually go to this group and
Mhm.
express their feelings and
Mhm.
get different points of view of different other people that are actually suffering from the same thing.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And it's April 6th, it's a Wednesday night,
Right.
7 o'clock, Pollen Library. Thank you.
David, do you think Kara would mind if the chief were to show up just to?
Please give her a call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Councilman DePiero?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and excuse me for using my phone here, but I have an email from the individuals in the group. And just so there's a little more information out there, it always helps.
Sure.
It, GRASP stands for Grief Recovery After Substance Passing. So like our friend said, what kind of group it is. And I'm just going to read the mission statement so everyone
Absolutely.
has it in their mind. GRASP is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide safe, non-judgmental forum so that people grieving the loss of a loved one to substance use/overdose may share their feelings, stories, struggles, strategies, and support with each other, and to honor and grieve the loss of their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before I read what we've been doing? Basically, I just give a summarization of what certain members, we all work on this stuff together, so if there's anything that I missed, jump in. Working on and talking to Council President John Hanlon and also Mayor DiMaria about possible funding available and/or grants to explore new ideas to help with the opioid crisis committee to help public. You touched on it tonight, Catherine Rollins, and also Steve Sapino. Had meeting with the Mayor DiMaria and President Hanlon on funding for possible funds to a medical program. That's what we've been talking about separately, so. In talks with Senator DiDomenico about funding for a tech program and possible City of Everett funding.
For enforcement.
No. Met with tech people on programs, and they're actually moving forward with their programs. Producing new legislation to stop sales of synthetic marijuana within school zones. Met with Congressman Moulton and his staff to talk about new technology, gave a presentation to them, setting up dates to begin presentation to other congressional and senators at state and Washington federal levels to see this new program. Met with Sheriff Katusian to talk about his Vivital program and how to establish one in our city. That's what we're looking at too as well. We should probably utilize that one for a model. Went to Assistant Superintendent Obremski and waiting on them, talk to them about the beginning of grade 3 through 12 education, and they have a box filled of this information here. They're going to actually look at that and try to get some type of curriculum together and possibly ask for funding for that. So that was a good point, Councilman Mangan. Everett High School is the site for a Narcan training with Cambridge Healthcare Alliance, and that's what, on the 24th of May, I believe? That's what Assistant Superintendent Obremski had told me. He said that that's what they're looking for. It'll be done at 5:30 on May 24th at the culinary section of the school. April 2nd, we have a table, and it is for Kuma, and that will be filled with this information there, and we'll be going, it's parent grad night, and the City of Everett and Everett Overcoming Addiction will be there. We'll be there as well to hand out our information to them. So that's just some of the stuff that we've been working on. Any ideas that you have collaboratively, we'd like to hear them, bring them, send them, email them to us, and we'll work on them and try to get funding and whatever else, whatever resources we can have come your way. Just one question, Lieutenant. With drug seizure money, right, what are they, just find out, I don't want to know on the air, but I want to know what they do with that funding, and also if we could utilize that for any type of treatment program at a city level.
Motion to dismiss, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Motion to dismiss. Thank you for all coming. Thank you for appearing tonight. I hope that we can all work collaboratively. Before you leave, please take some of this information with you and bring it to your sites, if you could. That would be great. Mrs. Sapino, I think you need to take a box full that's right there. There's a box on the other side.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.